Hello, 49er faithful. This is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and it's Monday. And as always, with me on Monday, my good pal Rob Shu. How you doing, Rob?
I am doing well, Jack. Pleasure to be here. Always appreciate our time together, my friend.
It is game week. We finally get into a little bit of get ready for a game on Sunday coming up. It's Monday, so it's still a little ways away, but hey, it feels good to have a game week coming up, right?
It does. I know that we're getting close to the regular season. I just had a phone call with my mother earlier today, and we ended the phone call right before I said goodbye. She said, "Go Niners." And I say, "Yes, go Niners." When my own mother is saying, "Go Niners," it's regular season. Game on. Bring it. The energy is here.
There you go. We've got a great group over in the comment section already. They're fired up. We got the Notorious Gav. JV is looking for the captains. He cannot wait to see who the captains are. He's been campaigning for Kyle Juszczyk all off season, and
he's hoping he can stop those drawings he's got to do.
That's right. I think we're gonna get some resolution to this either today or tomorrow. I think a number of teams are announcing those around the NFL. So we'll see what happens there. We got Pete Gorman in the house, Nick Garfoot. I think Nick and Notorious Gav are both from over in the UK, which is pretty awesome. We got Lucas Pesci, who's a member of the Toolbox, who says, "Hey Jack," he's from Austria, and then we've got Kevin, who's another member of the Toolbox, says, "Evening Jack and Rob and all. How things over there on the other side of the pond?" So Kevin's another guy from outside of.
He's over there in Glasgow.
Yeah, that's right. No, we are an international group here with the Hammerhead Show. I heard Bosa was in top form and staggered Trent, then swam past him to sack Lance. What did you guys see in practice? I wasn't at practice today. I just finished moving, so I didn't have time to get up there. I'm trying to recoup from a move that I did on Saturday. So taking
those are always fun, my friend.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be in terms of getting everything. It was one trip, and it's just a matter of going through everything now and getting sorted out. So it was actually a really good move.
Nice.
Looking forward to what's to come from that. And then Texas Niner says hammer and shoe. There you go. That's right. You hammer them and then you steal their shoes. I can't remember who said that the other day. And then we got Big Luke Walsh says happy Labor Day, everybody. And that's right. So happy Labor Day. Let's get this thing going. We got Las Vegas. Ti says, "Hey Jack from Las Vegas, Nevada." So Vegas, we were all over the place. We're an international group. We got Andre,
very international group today.
Yeah, and you gotta throw up the guys that are members of the Toolbox of those folks. So Andre, he says, "Hey Jack and Rob, looking forward to that big W." And Gav says the Shoe Jackers. So perfect. Real quick, I know we want to get into some predictions, and we're going to get there. But really quick, just want to mention that the 49ers did sign a couple of players today. There was news of Leroy Watson, the offensive lineman, being signed to the practice squad over the weekend. That was made official by the team today. And they also signed linebacker Buddy Johnson. So both of those guys were signed to the 49ers practice squad. A couple of interesting tips on both of those. Buddy Johnson was a 4th-round pick of the Steelers in the 2021 draft. So, they lost a 3rd-rounder to Philly and Trey Sermon. They picked up a guy that was a 4th-round pick and put him on their practice squad at linebacker. And then Leroy Watson's an interesting one. He was an undrafted rookie free agent this year. I think he was signed originally by the Falcons, but he comes from University of Texas San Antonio, which is where Spencer Burford came from. And we know the 49ers spent a lot of time around that school during the process. So they probably know a lot about him. When he became available, that's why he was attractive to them to pick up.
Absolutely. And if you're going to pick up a linebacker from somewhere, when I look at the Steelers, right, they seem to be able to turn out quality linebackers and quality wide receivers. So a previous 4th-round pick of the Steelers feels like there's a little something there from Buddy Johnson, and the UTSA connection for Leroy Watson is phenomenal.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. I think they're right at 16 now. I think they had 14 going into the weekend. I think they're right at they're full. So they might be able to carry one extra because they have the international.
They do Alfredo.
Player. Yeah, with Alfredo Gutierrez. So they're right there. They've got a pretty stacked group, and it's gonna be interesting. We got the game coming up on Sunday, and wanted to get into. I did this last year for the Press Democrat, and did my 5 bold predictions. I was looking back at that over the weekend because that's actually something I'm going to be writing up a little bit I've been in the process of writing it up, and it'll be up later on today.
Nice.
But I was looking back at my 5 bold predictions from last year, and I was like, dang, I did pretty good on these first like 3. I nailed those first 3. Those were good. And then I got a little sideways on 4 and 5, but the first 3 I hit. So we'll see. Maybe I'll do a little bit better this year.
That's fantastic. What do you recall offhand what the first 3 that you got correct on your bold predictions from last year were?
Yeah, I said the first one was that Trey Lance would throw more passes as a rookie than Patrick Mahomes.
Nice.
Mahomes going through 35, so I beat that number. And then Nick Bosa is going to record a double-digit sack total for the first time in his career. I hit that one. He got 15 and a half. Javon Kinlaw will be held to 3 sacks or less. I got that one. That was a bad one, but I got that one.
Yeah, that's one you don't want to be right on, but you were right. You were right.
And I was wrong on Talanoa Hufanga would start a game before Trey Lance.
Oh.
Wasn't that far off, though. I think I was off by a week or 2. And then the last one, as I said, that Fred Warner would be the defensive player of the year, and I was incorrect on that one.
Interesting.
Even though a lot of his numbers were better than were career highs, he still didn't win. You know, it's funny how that happens, right? Once you reach that level, even doing the same thing again sometimes doesn't really reap the benefits when it comes to awards and things, those types of things.
Right. And the Hufanga one, you were very close, right? Because he did play in that game that Trey started against Arizona, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he played in a number of games early than he in the games, but he made his first start against I think it was the Cardinals in week 10. I think was his first start.
His second matchup.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was around that point, I believe. I don't think he started the Packers game. Hold on a second. Since you asked me that question, let's go back and see. I think he started, since we're here now, let me look at the stats from last year. Let me find out. Where's Talanoa Hufanga on here? Just give me one second.
Absolutely. I think you got close on that one.
I think I did too. He started 3 games total. And come on, Jack. Don't hold up the show. Everybody's waiting. They want to hear your new predictions.
This is when we need the Jeopardy music in the background. Do 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 do.
Yeah, I was off by 2 weeks. Week 7 was his first start. Week 7 at
that's
Chicago.
Pretty close.
Or game 7, week 8. Yeah, game 7, week 8 was his first start. He started Chicago, Arizona, and the Rams were the 3 starts that he made. So, and they were all in a row. So, hey, sometimes it's not too bad. Not too bad.
No, I mean, today we're
both
going to go 5 for 5. So we're going to smash that record, but it was not bad last year, Jack.
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad. I'm going to nail it. I'm going to hit this one out of the park. You know, I've been so good on these for so long. Like somebody, who was it? I think it was Gav over here there you go, right here. He said, Nostradamus. That almost sounds bad, but yes. Yes, at least he didn't put an A before the U instead of the U. Thank you very much. Let's get into it. Let's get into our predictions. I'll let you go first since you're the guest. What is your first? It doesn't have to be like in any kind of order. Give me one of your bold predictions for the year.
Yeah, I'm going to go receiving on this one, and I'm sold on the chemistry here, and I'm praying for it from a fantasy football perspective because I've invested heavily here, Jack. But I see Brandon Ayuk leading the team in receiving yards this season. I know that Debo is going to be the favorite there. It would seem foolhardy to place Brandon Ayuk above Debo Samuel, and yet that is what I'm doing. Above Debo Samuel, above George Kittle. I do believe that connection between Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk will show up on the field over and over again throughout this season. And by the end of the year, we'll be looking at Ayuk as the leading receiver on the team as far as receiving yards go.
Okay, and that's a hard one to argue against because there's a lot of reasons to think that you're going to be right. Ayuk and Lance have connected pretty well in the past, and they've been a strong connection early on in training camp as well. Haven't really seen it all more recently because practice has been a little bit more broken up with the trip out to Minnesota and those kind of things. But I like that prediction. I think Ayuk's definitely going to have an increase in his production over where he was a year ago. So I can't really say that that's not going to happen. I still think it's going to be Debo.
Yeah,
because of what he does with the ball in his hands. But
it's a hard prediction to make, right? Because I'm with you, Jack. You have said that Debo is the most special wide receiver, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, I hope. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the most special wide receiver you have seen on the 49ers since Jerry Rice. And I tend to agree with that statement. And that feels wrong to then go against Debo leading the team in receiving yards. I still do believe that in total yards from scrimmage, Debo has a greater number of total yards. But I could see a possibility coming off a huge season like Debo did. You could see him missing a few games, that his body, is still recovering from that immense effort he put out last season. You just see so few back-to-back years wherein someone has sort of a record-breaking season and then comes back and does it all over again. And so there's a natural expectation for me of a bit of regression from Debo Samuel. I don't think that it's going to be a huge amount of regression. To your point, he's got an immense amount of skill. What he does with the ball in his hands is spectacular. But that in combination with it not being Jimmy throwing him the ball and it not being so many setups for Yak to accrue, it does seem reasonable that you could see a bit of a shift. And then I go back to that relationship with Trey.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's a really good one. And Amen Riles in the comment section has a good point. He says, Mr. Rob, Trey uses tight end a lot in his 1 year in college. Go back and look at it. Kittle going to have a great year. And I kind of agree with this too. I mean, there's a lot of that where you can say Kittle and Juszczyk might see their numbers, increase. So
yeah,
that would be.
This isn't a bold prediction for me, but it's one I've said before, so I'll say it again. I think Kittle has another 1,000-yard receiving season. I think he returns to that 1K club.
Right. I could see that. If he stays healthy, even the only thing with Kittle the last couple of years, his numbers have been down because his targets haven't been there as much. His targets per game have been reduced. But if he gets the targets and he's healthy, I agree with you. I think he can get over 1,000 yards as well. I mean, they could put up some big numbers. We're going to get into that, though, why that one's going to be something that's going to come up during this. The number of yards that they throw for this year will come up in the in the discussion. For me, I'm going to start off with Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson Jr., when he's healthy, might be one of the best backs on the 49ers. He might even be better than Elijah Mitchell when he's healthy. I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson Jr. leading the 49ers in rushing touchdowns this season. In 2020, he was healthy, and that's what he did. He had 7 rushing touchdowns that year. He didn't play in all the games, but when he was healthy, he was showing himself to be a strong runner in short yard situations. And I think that's going to be an area that the 49ers are going to look to use him in. Last year, they had to go to Debo Samuel because they really didn't have that guy in the red zone. And I think this year it's going to be Jeff Wilson Jr.
Quick question for you, Jack, as we get into a conversation about the running backs. Going back to 2019, you obviously had at the end of the year a three-headed monster, right? It was almost an even split in carries, in yards. It was pretty wild when you looked at Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, and Matt Breida. Now, some of that was dictated by injury, but my question is, am I remembering it incorrectly that season, it very much did feel as if there was a healthy rotation of use of backs, even when all of the backs were healthy? Am I misremembering that, or does that feel correct to you as well? That Tevin Coleman was definitely used early and often as sort of that tenderizer role, running into the strength of the defense, and then the speedy backs would come in and rip off those larger carries?
The way that I remember it was Coleman was kind of the constant of the season as the pounder, right? Like you said, the tenderizer guy. And then you had Matt Breida. Matt Breida was the second guy. He was the complement. He was the speed guy for the first half of the year. And then something happened about week 10 or so, and Matt Breida started to be Raheem Mostert at that point. And then Mostert took it over and carried it the rest of the way. So it was pretty much a two-headed monster for the most part, from what I remember, with it. When you look at the numbers, the end of the year numbers, it looks like there was 3 guys, but it was really 2 guys throughout the season. Just the second guy was the changed up a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right. The health changed about mid-season where it flipped to Mostert. That does ring a bell. That does make more sense as far as what I recall seeing as well. So I would expect to see a little bit of that this year, right? Of leaning on multiple backs. And I got to tell you, I'm with Gav here in that comment saying that you have sold me on the health of Jeff Wilson Jr. I was a big fan last year. I've got to say that what I saw, I took a step back in believing we were going to see the return to form of Jeff Wilson. And I just had to listen to everyone, you included, all the other beat writers saying that, hey, Jeff Wilson Jr. does look a little bit better than last year. Looks like he's regained a step, that much further away from injury. And when you hear Kyle Shanahan talk about him, I could very easily see him having a bigger role within this offense. And in particular, the big back TDP not seeming like he's getting worked in quite yet. I feel like that prediction of Jeff Wilson Jr. getting those rushing touchdowns feels like a good one.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I just think he's going to be. They're going to be able to utilize him in that role that they kind of got stuck having to use Debo in last year. I don't think they wanted to do that necessarily, but they got to. And DeMarcus here, he brought up the point, and he said Brady got hurt. Plus, he was having some fumbling issues. I remember the fumbling part. I don't remember him getting hurt so much, but I do remember he was putting the ball on the ground a little bit more. So,
yeah,
right on the money.
Just from the thought of Jordan Mason, I know that you've been high on him. What do you think it would take? Because this is a fantasy football question for me, Jack. I just got to know, what are the sleepers for the 49ers? I think it's Jeff Wilson Jr. if he's available in leagues. Feels like the kind of guy that could actually get some starts. What would it take for Jordan Mason to supplant Jeff Wilson Jr. and be a legitimate second option and work himself into the rotation? Is that going to require, unfortunately, injury, or could his play promote him to that level?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jordan Mason get the ball a number of times. He doesn't. The one thing that is nice about Jordan Mason is it doesn't look like he needs to get a bunch of carries to get up to speed. It looks like when we've seen him in the preseason, he gets in, and as soon as he gets the ball, he's making plays. It's not like you've got to get him going, and all of a sudden then he's going to start hitting the plays. He hits them right off the bat. So I could see him making some plays throughout. I don't know if from a fantasy perspective, I don't play fantasy, but I know there's lots of different ways that you score points, whether it's touchdowns or yards or what have you.
Right.
I think Wilson's going to be a good one from a touchdown perspective.
Those are big chunks.
Yeah, and I would say that one of my predictions, I'm not sure if I'm going to use it or not, but one of the things that I do feel is going to happen is that Jordan Mason will have more yards on the season rushing than Ty Davis Price. I think Mason will be the guy that gets more of those carries.
Second year in a row that the less highly touted individual outperforms the draft pick early on. So who do you think, because the 49ers typically dress three backs on game day, right? So I would think that three backs plus juice, I would think that someone will be inactive on game day early on. Do you have a sense of whether that will be Mason or TDP?
I just right now, I see Ty Davis Price as Trey Sermon. So Trey Sermon was the guy who everybody thought was going to be dressing because he was the new guy. And I think a lot of people figured he was going to be the number 2 back, and he didn't even dress week 1. So I could see this. I can kind of see that same thing playing out with Davis Price, where it's Mason as the third guy that's dressed. I think that third spot that's dressed is going to depend on who can help out on special teams. Right. They can't be dressed and not be a part of of that group.
Great point. Great point.
Yeah. So now what is your next? So you've got. I'm
going to give a 2-for-1 here, Jack. Nice. A 2-for-1 because I've gone in direct opposition to your own prediction. And so I got to throw in a second one with it. I have one about Jeff Wilson Jr. and I have one about most rushing touchdowns. They are not one and the same. So I'm not in agreement with you on the bold prediction that it's Jeff Wilson who has the most rushing touchdowns. I'm going out on a limb on this one, and I feel less good about it after the conversation we just had right there. I'm going TDP. It is too much for me to think that the 49ers are going to allow it to be 2 years in a row where they have the Sermon effect. I was impressed that they were able to say to themselves, you know what? We're going to go with the better player. We're going to release Trey Sermon. I thought they were going to be stubborn about that. They are an organization that, in my interpretation, don't like to look as if they have made mistakes publicly. They held on to Jimmy Garoppolo. But you can make a case for that. I was pleased, again, when they finally got rid of players, acknowledging that, hey, Dante Pettis wasn't a fit. Trey Sermon wasn't a fit. So I do think that that's really positive. I think they're going to try to prop up TDP so that it doesn't happen again. Short yardage feels like a win for him given the bulk, but I have to admit what I saw in preseason doesn't give me a whole lot of faith in his ability to really hit the line hard, pick up those short yardage plays. And Jeff Wilson Jr. has shown an ability to do that. So I'm feeling less good about it, but I'm throwing TDP out there, most rushing touchdowns on the Niners.
No, I like the prediction from the standpoint of that's kind of what I think the expectation was of Ty Davis Price. I like to see things a little bit before I make the prediction, and so that's why I don't go there, just because the little bit of what we've seen in Ty Davis Price in short yard situations hasn't been impressive at all. So
yeah.
that's the only reason why I'm thinking you're going to see more, not see some of those types of things happen. But
I have to agree. It has not been impressive to this point. The second half of the two-parter, Jeff Wilson Jr., this one is fantasy football gold if it happens, because he is available in most leagues, the leading rusher for the 49ers. I think most rushing yards. Injury is going to play a factor, going back to the fact that Jeff Wilson Jr. is one of the favorites in the locker room, seems to be the second back right now. Elijah Mitchell not able to put together a full season. If you see him miss some time, not only will Jeff Wilson Jr. have those days where he is the backup and he's racking up the yardage throughout, I think he gets some legitimate starts this season and is the lead back for some of those games. I would expect a couple of 100-yard rushing games from Jeff Wilson Jr. this year, and it just accruing over the season. I'm predicting it'll be statistically similar to 2019 at the end of the year, where it is pretty evenly divided, but I'm seeing Jeff Wilson Jr. as the lead back in those rushing yards.
There you go. And that could happen. He was right there in 2020 when injuries kind of thrust him into more of a regular role, and he had some really good starts in that season. So I could see that happening, especially if Elijah Mitchell struggles at any point.
Yes.
I want to throw this one up. Notorious Gav says, if somebody doesn't predict Juice going over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, I'm going to lose my tiny, fragile mind. The fact that he was the last part makes me laugh about that, because I know he's joking around. But yes, hey, maybe there's a good chance that Kyle Juszczyk get over 500 total yards if they actually decide that they want to throw one of their best players the ball and get it in his hands. That could be a very good positive thing.
Jack, I've just had a premonition. I think I can safely predict that Juice is going to go for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm feeling it right now. I don't know where it came from. I just got a sense of it, but it's a lock. Juice is going over 500. Bold prediction.
The juice is loose. Watch out. There we go. Like it. I like that one. That's a good one. Kyle Juszczyk. There you go. Notorious GAV. You got it. 500 yards from Big Rob.
I got to say, I'm also enjoying the prediction that was just made moments ago by Kali Young. That is one that very interesting observation of Shanahan throughout his career, one of those random factoids, and it could be a trend that is broken this season. If it holds chalk, you would think that it is the first time it happens where you have the same leading rusher.
That is a good one. I didn't even realize that was the case. I guess I need to brush up on my Kyle Shanahan statistical knowledge as it relates to things other than wins and points and quarterbacks.
That's right. You got to know all the obscure facts, Jack. You got to be able to go to trivia night at your local bar and nail the 49ers facts.
I got the best trivia question of all here, Rob. What is who holds the record for the fewest yards passing in 49ers franchise history?
Oh, I know this one, I think. Wait, in a single game?
In a season.
In a season. Is it Tim Rattay?
It is Tim Rattay.
Yes. I think I stole this from, I think I saw you put that out. That's delightful. What is the statistic again?
It was, and I think it was 2000. He was 1 for 1 for -4 yards.
Ooh.
He completed a pass to Fred Beasley for -4 yards, his only completion of the season. Yeah, so that's a good one right there. -4.
That is a great one. I'm putting that in the back pocket.
Then we've got the ghost of Judah Tribe coming in with the super chat. He says, "Corny whiner, wimpire." Oh boy, this guy. It's a good thing he paid for this. He says the Bears 28, whiner 17. You only put that up there because you are you're paying for it. Thank you for the $2. And He also says that offensive line is as bad as Trey Lance's hairline. I don't know. I saw something on somebody was talking about Trey Lance's hairline. I don't know what that's all about. But okay, Ghost of Judah Tribe, you got your $2. You got it thrown out up there. I'm gonna block you now. I'm just kidding.
Well, especially with cheap shots about hairlines, half of this broadcast crew is sensitive to those comments, Ghost of Judah Tribe. So, choose those words carefully.
Right. No, that's funny.
That's great.
Let's see. So my next one is I'm going to go to the defensive side. We're going to go with the defensive line, and I'm going to say that the 49ers defense is going to record the most sacks of any time under Kyle Shanahan. They've hit 48 twice. They hit 48 in 2019 and 2021. They're going to go over that number this year. Bosa looks good. I think Ebicom's going to, his career high has been 4.5, but he's never had more than 51% of the snaps. Eric Armstead has, he's a 16, he's got 16 sacks in the 2 seasons he's played alongside of Bosa, which are the best in his career. Javon Kinlaw's as healthy as he's ever been during his time with the 49ers since they drafted him. And then you just look at the depth of that defensive line, and you're also going to get linebackers blitzing and secondary guys blitzing and stuff like that. I think they're going to get over 48. I think 49 to 50 is the right number in terms of sacks for the defense. Let's get to 50, just a nice round number.
It is a beautifully round number, and I have to agree on this one. I'm in pretty close alignment. I'm just taking it 4 steps further on this one. No, not that much further. A little bit further. I have to agree, though. It is because of the depth of that defensive line. I mean, some of these players are primed for breakout seasons. I see so much talent in the second and third string of this defensive line. I also believe that it's a reasonable prediction that this team is absolutely stacked. Bosa seems ready to have himself a monster season. Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw wants to break out. Charles Omenihu is looking to break out. And even players that they managed to stash on the practice squad could end up with 3-4 sacks. You absolutely could see a situation where Kamoko Toure is promoted from the practice squad at the first sign of injury, and he racks up a few. I'm with you that the linebacking core, you see that the comfort towards the end of last season. I would expect that to carry through beginning this year, wherein DeMeco Ryans and Fred Warner and the linebacker crew are on the same page. Fred's flying around a bit more like he was in the second half of last season, leading to more sacks and pressures. So it does feel primed for a season like that.
Yeah, it really does. And Texas Niner, he took it even a step further than me. He goes up to 60 sacks. So I think they are primed to have a good one. And then also on the back end of the defense is going to help them out too. I think the corners are going to be a lot better, which is going to force quarterbacks to maybe hold on to the ball that split second longer than they want to, which is going to lead to some sacks as well. So, both those sides play off of each other. If we have time, we'll get to another one that's going to involve that secondary. But I think 50 sacks is doable for this team. Definitely more than 48, but they've hit a couple of times. So,
yeah,
there we go.
I agree. And I like Texas Niners prediction. That's actually kind of close to where I'm at. I don't go that big. 60 is a big number. But my prediction in tag teaming off of what you just said there, I believe that the 49ers lead the league in sacks this year. It's been the Pittsburgh Steelers for seasons on end, right? They seem to be able to just continue to rack it up with TJ Watt. But I do see the 49ers leading the league in total sacks by that defense. The prediction that I have there is a big one. It is a bold one. It requires a lot of players to contribute, getting us to 57 sacks on the year. So leading the league at 57 is the bold prediction.
Oh, that is a big number. That's a good one. That's a good one. So you're taking off. Are you just taking that off of mine, or is that your next bold?
No, that was my next bold prediction.
Okay, so you got 57. There, that's good. Like I said, I've got mine. You've got yours right there at that number. We got the 49ers Ultimate Report with the super sticker. Thank you for that. Really appreciate the $1.99. Thanks for showing the love, and that's good. Well, I guess since that was a quick one, I like my number, yours, and so that brings us right back to me, I guess. And all right, I'm going to have to explain this one because I already know as soon as I say this, people are there's a certain contingent of fans that are, like Matt, who's in our comment section here, and some others aren't going to like what I'm about to say, but here we
Uh-oh,
go.
Jack.
You ready, Rob? You ready?
I'm ready. Is the comment section ready? It's the real question here.
The 49ers will throw for fewer yards in 2022 than they had in 2021. Okay. Now that needs some explanation, though. Let's get into the explanation as to why. Because it's actually, if you really think about it, it's not a bad thing.
It's not.
No. Last year they threw for 4,221 yards. They're not going to get to that number this year. I think that they're going to be closer to about 3,800 yards. Here's, when you think back to last season, that they were throwing the ball quite a bit in the first half. They were 3-5, and really sticking to the run and being committed to the run is really what helped turn that season around. They were 3-5. It's like, okay, we need to run the ball 40 times a game. That was going into the Rams game. That was the goal, right? 40 times. We got to run the ball 40 times this week to win. And they won. The next week, we got to run it 40 times against Jacksonville. They run it 40 times. They ran the ball a lot more in the second half of the season. And they were successful in that way. In addition, in Trey Lance's 2 starts last year, and that's why it's kind of a tough one, because Lance, it's a really small sample size to try to extract a full season's worth of data from.
It really is.
In his 2 starts, they ran the ball 52% of the time, closer to 53, and 48, 47% throwing. So if you take those numbers, you take Trey Lance's yards per attempt, it comes out to right around 3,800 yards. If Trey Lance throws for 3,800 yards this season, that's not a bad year. It just means that, and the 49ers should be successful with it. And so I understand the looking at it, or just hearing the headline of that could be construed as a negative, but you need to actually drill down as to the reason why. And so I think it's just going to be a little bit more run heavy on of an offense, and Trey Lance doing everything that he did last year gets you to that total.
I just love the approach to that, Jack, right? It's so solid. It's grounded in a basis of fact. It is absolutely derived from true statistics, right? All you need is the continuation of things in order to get to that point where that prediction holds water, and it ends up being close to what happens this year. And I think it is fair to assume that you may see improvement this year, but it could be close to what we saw on the field last year. And to your point, it is a small sample size. But again, the logic that you lay out there to get to that conclusion makes a ton of sense to me. And then going over to the side of expecting the 49ers to run a bit more this season matches up with things that we have heard from this coaching staff, the personnel changes that this team has made, a focus on some bigger bodies. It does feel like this team is setting up to run the ball a substantial amount, and in doing so will control the game clock and probably end up having to throw it less. You could also see, if this defense is as stout as we believe it to be, the 49ers not having to put up as many points, not having to attempt to come back in as many games, and not accruing those same air yards.
Yep. And I think that last part was really important too, because you are throwing the ball a lot more when you're behind, and the 49ers were having to throw the ball to get back into games more in the first half than they were in the second half, because they were able to get out. They were controlling the tempo a lot more in the second half of the season. They weren't turning the ball over at the same rate. All those things kind of played into each other. Deebo Samuel wasn't dropping the ball as much because he wasn't getting the ball thrown to him quite as much. So there's a lot of reasons around all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if you get to that 3,800 yard marker, that is not a bad season for a first full season for a quarterback. I would absolutely take that.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. Obviously, because that's what I put up there, but right.
Obviously.
No, but if Trey Lance puts those numbers up, I don't think anybody should be ripping them. I know there's a portion of the fan base that's going to rip him regardless of what he does. But
right.
If he's around those numbers and the team is winning games, you can't complain about it. That would be a solid year for him.
Absolutely. Very solid.
Real quick. And this goes back to our pass rush thing. Jaguayo, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, Jack and Rob, my bold prediction is that Drake Jackson begins being the third down rusher eventually, takes over, ends up with 15 sacks, and is the defensive rookie of the year. Great show. Ooh, that would be a really good one, because I really, Drake Jackson is somebody who throughout training camp and the preseason games, he really flashed to me. I know he flashed to a lot of folks, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the regular season.
That would be very helpful in getting to my total of 57 sacks. I mean, this would be a boon in getting to the league leading sack totals for the defense.
Imagine if you have Nick Bosa, hit 15 and a half, and then you've got this guy at 15. Now you're already at 30, and that's only two out of.
You have undersold what you think I'm predicting for Nick Bosa. That big prediction is coming up in just a moment. So yeah, those totals alone, if we can get Drake Jackson to put up 15, I'm feeling golden about my 57 prediction.
Yeah, they do that, and you got a D'Amico Ryans who's going to be a head coach next year, most likely.
That's right. That is the shame of this defense. It seems inevitable to me that this defense will be good, if not elite. He got a ton of interest last year. You have to assume that he's going to get interest again this year. You cannot continue to turn down jobs in the NFL. Probably only going to get offered a handful of them. Most guys end up taking one, even if it's not the right situation. I thought it was right for him to stay, continue to mature in the role, but you have to assume at some point he wants to be a head coach and will accept one of these opportunities. It seems inevitable it could be at the end of this season.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like that's going to be the case. So, anyway, so that was my third one was the Trey Lance piece. What was yours?
Mine is Nick Bosa going over 20 sacks. I'm saying 20.5 this year. He does not eclipse Aldon Smith, but he does break 20, helping me greatly achieve that total of 57 sacks. Again, back to Drake Jackson and Nick Bosa. They combined for 35 and a half sacks. I'm going to be feeling real good at that point with that prediction.
There you go. That's 20 and a half for Nick Bosa. That's
yes, sir.
That's, the way that he's looked and the way that he has looked in training camp, it's either because the 49ers offensive linemen are that bad or it's because he's that good. And I think he's that good. We saw him do it against everybody else in the NFL last year. I'm not gonna put it past him to be able to put up 20. That'd be a huge number for Bosa. And on top of it, the other piece, if he can do that, is that he has going back to his college days. He's never put back-to-back seasons together. And so to see him be able to do that in year 4 with the 49ers, that's a good prediction, Rob.
That will be huge. I also like the call out of a 20 piece. I hadn't thought of that as a 20 piece of McNuggets, but yeah, it's the old 20 piece. Get him that 20 piece.
There you go. See, look at that. Now you're really rolling. The 20 piece McNug for Nick Bosa. There you go.
That's right.
We got to remember that as the season goes on, so we can keep it talking about that one now in that fashion as well. I'm gonna stick with the defense on this one. This is my fourth. I'm gonna say that the defense is going to record the most interceptions that they've had in a season since 2014.
Ooh,
the 2014 49ers. They didn't have a very good record. They're only 8-8. But they had over 20 interceptions that year. I think the number is 23, and that's the most they've had since that. They haven't gotten over. They haven't been close to that under Shanahan. The most that they've had under this current regime is 12, I believe. So I think they're going to see an increase. I don't think they're going to get to the 23 total, but you're going to see a number probably in the 16, 17, 18 range. And this goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Remember, I said that I felt like the secondary was going to help the defensive line with getting to that sack total. And I think that defensive line is going to help the secondary and the linebackers get the interception total, because one of the best ways to get turnovers is to hit the quarterback. The more you hit the quarterback, the more often you get balls popping up in the air, the more often you have them throwing the ball before they want to. And that's usually where interceptions come from. Interceptions don't usually come from a quarterback sitting in the pocket and throwing it in his rhythm. So I think if, Charvarius Ward, you have Emmanuel Mosley, if those guys are healthy, and then in the second, on the back half with Hufanga, who's shown already to be a bit of a ball hawk, the linebacker group, I think they're going to get over 12. Some are probably in that range of, like I said, 16 to 18. That'd be a solid number for this team.
And not to mention Sam Womack. I had to take, there was the, NFL coming out with Defensive Player of the Year and the graphic that they put on there. And of course, there was no 49er listed on that graphic because we didn't have a first round pick. So I corrected it, copied and pasted Sam Womack in there. I mean, defensive rookie of the year potential candidate. The guy has a knack for the ball, seems to have a gift with his hands, the long arms. Could be that he's racking up those interceptions. This was a concern for me coming into this season because I felt that the Niners hadn't addressed it. They hadn't gone out and brought in anyone that was specifically a ball hawk. We all were saying the Niners need a safety, right? Have to go out and get a safety. So I set my little heart upon Jalen Petrie because I thought he was going to be all over the field. Watched him at the combine, was super impressed with his fluidity, his ball skills, and we didn't bring in anyone that it felt like had substantial cred when it comes to forcing turnovers, intercepting passes. When I look at the way in which this team has been assembled, and when I watch them practice and look at the results of preseason games, I have to reconsider that they may not have gone out and gotten that one player to add to the mix. But it does feel that they have assembled a defense that in its totality, to your point of pass rush versus pass coverage, is going to complement each other in that regard. And the players within the secondary, while none may have a statistically stellar season to point to as an interception total, all have shown the ability to do it. And you've seen flashes from guys that could take that next step. So I think that's a great prediction. I anticipate this defense will be elite on all levels. So it would make sense to me that they would also be able to force those turnovers, rack up the interceptions.
Yeah, and Big Nick Harfoot, he comes in, he said, he likes your Sam Womack part of it. He says Sam Womack is going to have 2 pick sixes. Just watching Womack, man, that guy is so good in coverage, and I think he's going to have some picks. And I don't know about 2 pick sixes, but he's going to have his share. He's probably going to get a few of his own.
That does feel like a super sleeper defensive player of the year candidate. I mean, no easier way to rack up awards than by forcing turnovers, right? You look at sacks, turnovers, the big metrics. If he is able to rack up pick sixes, that could be it. This could be a good $5 wager that maybe pays a considerable amount. By the way, in answer to a very important question that was coming up in the chat earlier with regards to the 20 piece that we are going to trademark for Nick Bosa, it's all about the sweet and sour. It is all about the sweet and sour. I'm with Matthew Mears on that one.
The sweet and sour with the chicken nuggets, huh?
Sweet and sour in the 20 piece.
And there you go.
It's been a long time since I've had it, but I will be getting multiple this year to celebrate Nick Bosa as he reaches each milestone.
Yep, there you go. So every 5 you're going to have to get a 5-piece chicken nuggets.
I'll get myself a 5-piece when he hits that 5, and I will eat them on camera as we get into the 20-piece.
Thank you. You finished my thought. That's what I was going to tell you. Every 5 you got to down a 5-piece, and then when he gets a 20, it's a 20-piece, and we get to sit there and watch Rob stuff his face for 20 minutes as he's trying to talk through a stream with chicken nuggets falling all over his beard.
Absolutely be like the Wedding Crashers where num 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 sack lunch. That will be what I'm doing on here.
There you go. Perfect. What is your next bowl prediction?
All right, this is number 5 for me, technically 6 because I snuck in that extra one on you.
Okay.
I am going back to Trey Lance, and it is in regards to completion percentage. So I believe, despite continued concerns, let us say, about accuracy in certain passes, I am predicting that we will see an increase in completion percentage for Trey Lance. He was at 57.7 last year. I am predicting a 63% completion percentage or better for Trey Lance. Jimmy was a 68.3. I don't think that it's all going to be because Trey Lance has made considerable leaps and bounds, but what I believe to be true is that Kyle Shanahan is a master at disguising weakness. He's great at focusing in on what a player does best. I believe he will be able to take Trey Lance and his raw abilities and put him in the most successful situations possible that allow Trey to complete the easier passes, that allow him to rack up that completion percentage. And I do think we'll continue to see ups and downs for Trey Lance. I would expect to continue to see inaccuracy issues that we have seen continually this year, maybe for the next season as he works on that. But again, in combination with Kyle Shanahan, I think that completion percentage will be up.
Yeah, 63%. That's not too far. I was saying earlier on in the offseason or before training camp or whatever with my original prediction on what Lance's numbers would be, that it was going to be somewhere in the 62%. If he can get up to 62, it's about a 5% increase. I think where you're at is right around that same ballpark.
Yeah.
And that's why the original numbers I had, I've changed them a little bit because I haven't seen that consistent accuracy through training camp. So that's why I backed off of that a little bit. But, I think that's a solid number. I think you're right at a number where you would want to see him get to. And if he can get to that 62% or 63%, I think that's a solid increase for him. And I think you're right. I think Kyle Shanahan will help him get there with the way that he plans around him or plans it for him. So that's a good one. And then Kevin, who's a member of the Toolbox, he wanted to just shout out there really quick that Sweet and Sour is about how he would describe the chat room tonight.
It's true.
It's hard for me to disagree with them. And it's been an interesting group over on the side. They're fighting amongst themselves, and I think I've got the prime problem over there. He's on a timeout right now. So we'll see. If
our Bears fan got a little feisty at some point. It went from friendly banter to feisty.
Yeah, he was getting a little frustrated. And Callie Young says everyone has a plan until they get busted in the mouth. To quote Mike Tyson, Justin will get blasted. Talking about that was Justin Fields. There's been a lot of talk around Justin Fields and his feelings around the 49ers. It seems like leading up to this game.
Yeah,
we'll see, man. Justin Fields
passed over.
Yeah, I thought Justin Fields played good against the 49ers last year. For the most part, I thought that was a good. He did good. I thought the 49ers their defense came around, and Deebo Samuel and Jimmy Garoppolo made him pay on a couple of deep plays.
As far as matchup, when you take a mobile quarterback and put them against the wide 9 defense, do you think that the 49ers are at a disadvantage scheme-wise when they come across those mobile quarterbacks, or is that just the case regardless of defensive formations?
I think it's regardless of defensive formation. It really just comes down to your defensive linemen staying in their rush lanes and being able to get to the spots they're supposed to get to. It's one of the reasons I like having Eric Armstead on the inside instead of the outside, because Eric Armstead has a tendency when he's playing on the edge to get a little too flat, which allows the quarterback to get out and around him.
Right.
I think with Bosa and with Samson Ebicom, it's a little bit better, especially with Ebicom more so than Bosa, because Bosa also has some issues with that at times. If they can set the edge correctly and guys can get to their lane, into their rush lanes and keep where they're supposed to, I think that they'll be fine. It's just a matter of don't get into it sounds odd, but don't get into a rush in your pass rush. Meaning, don't put yourself out of position in a rush to get at the quarterback because they can move, and all of a sudden you're chasing the ghost.
Yeah, and it is fair to say that any additional size of the gaps created by that wide 9 scheme, the 49ers do have elite linebackers that are, I would argue, more than capable of making up that difference in covering those larger gaps.
It doesn't seem to me like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like to me like most of the time the big yardage that they're giving up is by the quarterback running up the middle on them. It's usually some guy getting to the edge. And
break and contain.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray or frickin' Russell Wilson. I've got nightmares of both.
We saw Justin Fields do that to him last year. Remember the one play where it looked like they had him dead to rights, and he starts scrambling over the place. Next thing you know, he's running down the field for a big gain. So it's a little bit of everything. So it's definitely it's going to be fun to watch.
Yes, it is. And it could be a close game to wherein 1 or 2 runs by Justin Fields could be the type of difference. So yeah, going to be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I just don't know if they have the firepower over there to match up with the 49ers defense. I think that's what's going to be interesting to keep an eye on. Blind Tom with the big super chat, he says, I think Trey is going to be fine. Jack, Purdue Digs are not as hot as my house here in Ione. I'm going to tell you, it is 109 today here where I am. I'm not that far.
Gracious, Jack.
I'm really not that far away from you, big Blind Tom. I'm a little south, but I've got the heat. It's supposed to be 114 here tomorrow, so I got my sweatshirt ready to go.
Nice and cool out there. Yeah, it's 77 in Portland. We are chilling up here. High of 80. This is a glorious day.
Yeah, you're it's much cooler up there. That's for darn sure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, no, but it's all good. It's all good. That's what air conditioning is made for, and that's why we get to do these streams.
Amen.
Because you got to stay in the house to stay cool.
That is right.
I already got my sweat in earlier today, finishing up my unloading of the stuff out of the garage. let's see. Okay, the last one I guess comes to me. So my last bold prediction, like I said, I was going to do the Jordan Mason over Ty Davis Price for more yards. I'm going to go back to one we talked about earlier, and it's going to be Deebo Samuel, and I'm going to say Deebo Samuel is going to get over 1,000 yards for the second year in a row. I'm not going to say where he finishes in terms of according to other 49ers receivers, but he's going to break 1,000 yards for the second year in a row, receiving yards.
I think that's a big prediction because in order for that to happen, Deebo has to be healthy most of the season. And I do believe that is one of the larger themes coming off of, again, a year in which the usage was extremely high. He sat out the beginning of training camp, and you wonder what type of level of fitness comparatively to last year he was in. Seemed like he had to knock a little bit of rust off. So to have another 1,000-yard receiving season would be a phenomenal accomplishment because they're certainly going to use him as a running back. So total yards will be up there. It allows both of our predictions to be correct, that Brandon Aiyuk could have more and Deebo has those all-purpose yards.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, or it could be that both of them get over 1,000 yards, and Aiyuk just ends up having more. The 49ers haven't done that since I think it was 2013, or it was at some point during the Harbaugh years, where they had two receivers go over 1,000 yards. I think it was
Anquan Boldin and
Michael Crabtree. I think.
Yeah.
I think that was the last time that it happened. So we might see the 49ers get there this year. So keep our fingers crossed for that. That'll be good news for the Trey Lance fans in the house, and the Jack hates Rob. The Jack hates Rob. Wow. The Jack hates Trey contingent would take a little bit of a beating on that one.
I'm taking strays here, Jack. Taking strays.
Where did it came up? It was because of the next super chat I'm going to pull up. I saw Rob's name. And I was like, Jack.
I can't tell you how many times I do that. You're mid-sentence while reading a chat on the side, and all of a sudden something from the chat comes out of your mouth. It's like, I'm sorry, my brain doesn't always process two things at once.
Yeah, well, that's almost as bad as the one that we had on your show on Friday. I'm glad that nobody picked up on that on Twitter.
Yes.
But Jay, he comes in with a super chat real quick. He says, Jack and Rob, are you both going to Chicago or to Chi-Town? Safe trip. It was the question. And I'll ask you, Rob, you going to Chicago?
I am most definitely going to Chicago. Going to be eating some Portillo's sandwiches. Going to get some Chicago deep dish. I'm at a place near the stadium. Going to be a nice trip. Last time I was in Chicago, it was chilled to the bone, right? I stopped by there after going to Lambeau Field for that playoff game, came back to Chicago, had layers on. Jack, I tell you, it did not matter. The wind cut through those layers like a hot knife through butter, and I was chilled to the bone. So I'm thrilled that this is going to be nice weather. Looking forward to Chicago, looking forward to some food, looking forward to the Niners whooping some butt.
Yeah, yep, that's awesome. And I'm going to be out in Chicago too. I know I'm looking forward to it. This will be the first time that I've ever got on a plane to go watch the 49ers play a game. I have traveled down south to watch them play in Los Angeles a couple of times, but this will be my first get on a plane, go watch the 49ers play a game. I'm super excited about it. And I'm looking forward to doing it, and hopefully we're going to be able to meet up, and hopefully there'll be some other fans that are going to be there, and they can meet up as well. It'll be a lot of fun, and I'm just looking forward to getting out to Chicago. I've been to Chicago a few times, and never to a game there, obviously, but I'm looking forward to this trip. I'm really excited.
Me too. I'm looking forward to putting that pin right there in that map and marking off Soldier Field. Very excited about that, and yes, very excited to hang out, spend some time in Chicago. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I know you've got a bunch of pins on your wall there with the all the locations you've been to. So yeah, Soldier Field, that's the other part of it too. Soldier Field's a historical stadium. I know they've redone it since the old days, but still to be able to go to Soldier Field, I'm looking forward to this, man. I'm
very
excited.
Significant.
Cannot wait till Sunday to get this thing kicked off and get the season rolling, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be busy for the rest of for the next 18 weeks. A lot of busyness, and I'm here for it.
I am absolutely here for it, my friend.
Yeah, you can't beat it. So I want to real quick, Rob, I know I don't think you're going to be streaming today, but what have you got coming up on your channel this week?
Yes, I will be back on tomorrow with the 49ers mailbag. People can always send in questions regardless of what day of the week it is to 49ersmailbag@gmail.com. Or in the morning, I tend to send out a tweet asking for your 49ers questions. You can respond there on Twitter if you like. I'm at The Left Shoe. And if not, just show up to the program at 5 p.m. tomorrow evening, ask your question live, and I will just off the cuff answer it. It might be genius. It might be terrible. It might be funny. It might be sad. You never know what you're going to get.
There you go. Make sure you check out Rob's channel. I think I got it the at correct for the YouTube channel at Rob Shoe here on YouTube. The left shoe for if you're on Twitter. Make sure you give him some love. He does a great job on his channel, and I'm just fortunate to be able to do this a couple times a week with him. It's always fun talking to you, Rob.
Yes, it is, sir.
Thank you to everybody over in the comment section as well. Do me a favor before you head out, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're subscribing for the first time, hit that little bell notification so that you don't miss any of the shows as they go live. And then also get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's the Inside the 49ers blog. That's over there. And Raphael5629 says, I'm going to miss tomorrow's shows. I'll be in Disneyland. So, hey, at least you're going to be in the happiest place on earth.
Yes. With a lot of lines.
That's right. There you go. Thank you to Notorious Gav and everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday. I'll be back tomorrow with So Real Sunil. Talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.